Stick around, as this story could reshape the British political landscape entirely. This morning, Westminster was rocked by a political storm. Nigel Farage unleashed a scathing attack on Prime Minister Keir Starmer, accusing him of nothing less than undermining democracy. The cause of the uproar? Key local elections, originally slated for May 2025, have been postponed. Not by mere months, but potentially until 2026 or even 2027. This decision has sent shockwaves through the political sphere, sparking questions. Is this a pragmatic reform or a calculated Labour power play? Before we dig deeper, don't forget to hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and give this video a thumbs up. Remember, your voice matters. It's been a monumental fortnight for Reform UK. The party is making headlines non-stop. Some polls place them ahead of Labour, others ahead of the Conservatives. One thing is clear, with all three major parties polling in the 20s, Reform UK is the one gaining ground. Now let's talk about Farage. He's calling this move a desperate bid to hang on to power, and he's far from alone. Let's break down why this delay is happening, the political repercussions, and the accusations of dictatorship it's stirring. Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK and one of the sharpest critics of the establishment, isn't pulling punches. He insists Labour's decision to delay these elections amounts to a blatant power grab. According to Farage, the century-long grip of Labour and the Conservatives is crumbling under the weight of their own failures, leaving them scrambling to retain control. As Farage puts it, the old guard is terrified. They know their time is up. The public is waking up to their lies, and their day of reckoning is drawing closer. But Farage didn't stop there. He accused Labour of adopting tactics akin to the US Democrats, alleging they use the guise of democracy to shield moves that quietly undermine it behind closed doors. If we're going to build a people's army that can challenge the establishment and deliver the kind of government this country needs to reverse its decline, now is the time, Farage declared. Reform UK's official statement pushed the narrative further, branding the postponement as a targeted attack on areas where the party is gaining ground. Meanwhile, local government minister Jim McMahon provided a different explanation. He cited significant restructuring in councils across Essex, Kent and Sussex, mergers, abolishments and other changes as the reason elections need to be delayed. But here's where things get interesting. These regions are some of the most hotly contested battlegrounds for Reform UK. Is it a mere coincidence that the delays align with Labour's toughest electoral challenges? Farage doesn't think so. He urged supporters, if you want real change, if you want to reverse the economic and societal decline we're facing, join us. The time is now. He dismissed Labour's explanation outright, calling it a convenient excuse to stall elections in areas where they fear heavy losses. He went so far as to compare Labour's actions to those of authoritarian regimes, branding them third world tactics. Harsh words, but they resonate with many voters disillusioned with the status quo. Let's not forget that Essex, Kent and Sussex have been hubs of growing dissatisfaction with Labour policies. From spiralling living costs to unresolved local grievances, these regions are proving fertile ground for Reform UK's promise of change. Still, Labour isn't taking these accusations lying down. Veteran MP Harriet Harman has branded Reform UK as a threat to democracy, dismissing Farage's rhetoric as dangerous populism. But Reform UK's chairman, Youssef, hit back with sharp criticism of Keir Starmer. Think about it, he urged. We can't do this without you. This has to be a mass movement. The Tories have failed us, betrayed us. Labour is hopeless. You know the country is going down the drain. Join us. Youssef accused Starmer of governing like a despot, deliberately targeting areas where Labour risks significant losses in future elections. This isn't democracy, it's manipulation on a grand scale, he asserted. The stakes are sky high, with both sides claiming to defend democracy while accusing the other of destroying it. Amid the growing controversy, Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner unveiled Labour's New English Devolution white paper, a plan she called a turning point for the nation. Rayner's message was clear. Labour's vision is about returning power to the people. The white paper promises to transfer control from Whitehall to local communities, aiming to boost growth, improve living standards, and bring stability after years of turmoil. In her statement, Rayner declared, "This is about breaking free from the endless cycle of austerity and decline. We want local councils to have the power to shape their futures." Here's the contradiction that critics are quick to highlight. How can Labour champion empowering communities while delaying elections? The very mechanism that gives those communities a voice. For many, this move undermines the credibility of Labour's promises. This is about more than just Labour versus Reform UK or Farage versus Starmer. It's about the future of democracy in Britain. Even when justified by logistical reasons, delaying elections sets a dangerous precedent. Critics argue it erodes public trust in the system, leaving voters feeling powerless. With accusations of dictatorship in the air, Labour's image faces potential damage. Yet, Labour supporters contend this is a matter of responsible governance. They claim that rushing elections during ongoing council reforms could create more confusion and instability. So, who will the public believe? Farage's fiery rhetoric resonates with disillusioned voters, but Labour's message of stability and progress appeals to those weary of political squabbling. Looking ahead, the stakes have never been higher. Will these election delays backfire on Labour, strengthening Reform UK's momentum? Or will Labour's vision for English devolution ultimately sway voters? At its heart, this debate is about more than political rivalries. It's a test of Britain's democratic fabric. Postponing elections, even under the banner of administrative reform, feels like a betrayal to many. For decades, Britain has prided itself on being a beacon of democracy, where citizens hold leaders accountable through regular elections. But what happens when that accountability is deferred? The result is a growing sense of disempowerment and a weakening of trust in the system. Are we witnessing necessary reforms to improve governance, or a calculated power move by Labour to secure its position? As trust erodes and tensions rise, the answer could redefine British democracy for years to come. Critics warn that delaying elections sends a troubling message, that democratic processes and the voices of the people can be sidelined for political convenience. And this isn't just about postponing local elections. It's about silencing the mechanisms that shape critical policies affecting everyday lives, from housing and transport to healthcare and education. Picture this. You're fed up with your local council's failure to address soaring housing costs or fix unreliable public transport. You're counting down the days until you can vote for change. Then, suddenly, that opportunity is taken from you. Not for months, but for years. Wouldn't you feel silenced? It's no surprise that Farage's fiery rhetoric is resonating. Reform UK, once dismissed as a fringe party, is now emerging as a formidable force, particularly in areas where both Labour and the Conservatives have failed to address local frustrations. The reason is clear. They're tapping into the disillusionment of ordinary Brits who feel abandoned by the political elite. Farage has strategically positioned himself as the voice of the forgotten, those who believe the system is rigged against them. Consider Essex, for example. This region has seen a groundswell of support for Reform UK, driven by voters who feel overlooked and underserved by mainstream parties. Reform UK is capturing the anger and disappointment of communities left behind, transforming their frustrations into a growing political movement. As Labour and the Conservatives struggle to regain the trust of these voters, the question is whether their traditional strongholds can hold, or if Reform UK will continue to rewrite the rules of British politics. Local residents have long voiced frustrations over crumbling infrastructure, overstretched healthcare services and rising crime rates, yet they feel their concerns have been ignored. Reform UK has capitalised on this discontent, offering bold promises and presenting itself as a real alternative to the established political order. Farage has summed it up plainly. People are tired of broken promises. They want leaders who deliver, not just talk. Every decision Labour makes that can be seen as undemocratic only reinforces Reform UK's narrative and bolsters their appeal. The question now is whether this controversy will be the tipping point that launches Reform UK into the political mainstream. Labour's strategy, or what some are calling its riskiest political gamble, centres on delaying elections. They may hope this buys time to consolidate their reforms and shore up their standing. But this move comes with a significant risk: alienating the very voters they're trying to court. Angela Rayner's English Devolution white paper, while ambitious, might not be enough to undo the damage. Critics argue that promising to return power to communities is meaningless if those same communities are denied the opportunity to vote. In politics, perception is everything. Even if Labour's intentions are legitimate, the optics of delaying elections play right into their opponents' hands. It allows Reform UK to cast Labour as both undemocratic and desperate, further fueling their rise. For Labour, the stakes couldn't be higher. If voters see this move as an attempt to cling to power, it could backfire spectacularly, handing momentum and potentially significant electoral gains to Reform UK. Farage is wasting no time capitalising on Labour's decision, framing it as a betrayal of democracy. And as history shows, once a narrative like this gains traction, it's incredibly hard to shake. Labour now finds itself walking a precarious tightrope. Will their long-term vision pay off? Or will this gamble erode the trust of the electorate? This isn't just a test for Labour, it's a personal challenge for Keir Starmer's leadership. For months, Starmer has tried to establish himself as a steady and reliable leader, capable of guiding Britain through turbulent times. But this controversy threatens to undermine that carefully crafted image. Farage has been relentless, painting Starmer as weak, out of touch, and even authoritarian. While the accusations are harsh, they resonate with voters already questioning Starmer's leadership. And the pressure isn't just external. Within Labour's ranks, there are murmurs of dissent. Reports suggest that some MPs are worried this decision could spectacularly backfire, giving Farage and Reform UK a unique opportunity to expand their influence. Starmer's legacy may well hinge on how he handles this crisis. Will he stand firm and emerge as a leader who weathered the storm? Or will this controversy become an enduring blemish on his record? At the heart of it all lies a question many voters are grappling with. Who can we trust? Labour promises a bold vision for the future, centred on empowering local communities through reform. Meanwhile, Reform UK positions itself as the defender of democracy, challenging what it sees as Labour's overreach. For the average voter, this debate isn't just political, it's deeply personal. It's about their communities, their livelihoods, and their futures. Right now, many feel caught in a crossfire that seems more focused on power than people. Both parties face the same challenge, proving that they're not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. Because ultimately, actions will speak louder than words. Britain is at a crossroads. Our democracy, our communities, and our future hang in the balance. But this isn't just a fight for politicians, it's a fight for every one of us. What do you think? Is Labour safeguarding democracy, or is Reform UK the true voice of the people? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for the latest updates on this unfolding drama. Together, let's hold our leaders accountable.